is to talk about stance. So here is your standard Viking type shield. Mine is about 36 inches across, and the reason that it's 36 inches across is because it's made custom for my kill zones. If you're a large person, you should have a large shield. If you're a small person, you should have a smaller shield. If you're a small person, you use a huge shield, and there's a strong wind, it's going to be a problem. You're going to find difficulty bringing your shield across to protect yourself. Okay, so the stance. Your stance should be like this. Okay, so you're holding your shield up in front of you, and you're minimizing the amount of view that you're cutting off by having your shield in front of you. If I had my shield out in front of me like so, I wouldn't be able to see blows coming towards my legs, and that would create an opportunity for my enemy. So again, your stance should be something like this. See it from the side, see it from this side. My sword, literally, the guard and pommel of my sword should never pass the edge of my shield. If it did, it'd be easy for an opponent to just simply cut it off. So again, when you're standing and you're ready, and you're in your ready position, ready for combat, you want your shield in front of you like so. You also want to keep in mind that the placement of your feet is extremely important as well. If you're standing like so, if you're standing with a partner right now, and you have your sword and shield, hold your sword and shield like this and have your partner shove your shield as hard as they can. If your feet are literally planted the way mine are, as if I'm standing in line for lunch, you're going to end up on your ass. So you want to build a foundation. Your feet, your legs, up to your belt, that's the foundation of your fortress. Your belt to your chest, those are the walls of your fortress. So you have to have a strong foundation and able to continue to build a strong defense. If your feet are close, planted together like this, it's a weakness. You definitely want to crouch a bit. Anybody who's done any martial arts type training, there's always a crouch involved in your stance. So you want to keep this type of stance when you're fighting. It gives you a strong foundation to be able to move around if you have to negotiate around the area that you're fighting in. You know, you always want to be cognizant of the fact that your foundation needs to be strong. Okay, with regards to shield work, you see a lot of television shows, you see a lot of movies, you see a lot of people holding their shields like this. If you're in a shield wall and you need to make sure that you've got a cohesive line, sure, you're holding your shield out in front of you and you're weaving in with the comrade on your right and the comrade on your left. And as long as you both stay together, as long as the guy on your right and the guy on your left are stoic and they're standing their ground, you know you're going to be okay. If somebody breaks and runs, now there's a hole in your shield wall and the enemy can pour through. So back to shield work. If I were to stand there like Woodrolf here, holding his shield out straight, I could either use my weapon to move it aside or I could use my shield to move it aside. If I use my shield to move it aside, I'm literally going to create an opening that I can take advantage of with my sword, like so. You see that? Back of a Viking shield, you've got this single handle that's like a spine that goes from the top to the bottom of the shield. And it is like a revolving door. That's why it's so important to hold it like so, because you're supporting this side of the shield with your arm, and it's a lot harder for somebody to hook your shield or to push it out of the way when you're holding it properly. So again, holding it straight in front of you, if somebody's firing arrows at you or throwing a spear at you, fine. But in combat, it makes no sense at all to hold your shield flat in front of you like this. Again, so I demonstrated moving it aside with my shield. Same thing is possible with your sword. Now I can take the edge of my shield and smash the person's skull into the back of their head. Anyone who's seen brass knuckles or know what brass knuckles are, it's a heavy brass instrument, a weapon that you grip with your hand, and it adds about a half a pound of weight to your hand. Plus the hardness of the steel or the bronze that it's made out of, you're going to have issues. It's gonna break your face. The main weapon in a Viking set, combat set, whether it's a sword or a hand axe, the main weapon is the shield. The shield is the implement that creates the openings so that you can use your weapon to take advantage of that. Another thing here is with the axe. Now, this is just a small hand axe, very quick. I see a lot of folks taking some really amazing, evocative Viking style photographs, and they're holding a big bearded axe like this. You know, if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or a linebacker, sure, maybe you can wield this thing like I wield that little hand axe, but it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be fast enough in combat, and you're going to fatigue the hell out of your shoulder wielding it. So if you're going to use a hand axe, you're going to use an axe in combat, you want to get an axe that's the right weight, that's the right length, to be able to use the same way that you use a sword. If you take a look at this sword, and you look at the dimensions of my axe here, it's pretty much got the same amount of reach. The thing is, the axe is going to make contact with an opponent a little bit faster than a sword will, because you see the tip of that axe is about 4 inches closer to my target than the handle. So it actually gives you a little bit more speed as well. The other thing that I really like about an axe is this can be used as a hook. So here's your opponent with their shield. You can literally pull that shield aside, and with a real axe, like my hand axe here, this hand axe is purpose driven. It was manufactured to be a weapon to cut and to pierce and to stab flesh. The protruding point of this axe is called a horn. And this horn literally can be used as a knife to go into somebody's eye socket, to go into their mouth, to go into their throat. It's a very deadly weapon. It's very handy and very fast. And it's no heavier than my sword. And my sword weighs about 2.8 pounds.
Can we see it up close?
So this is a hand axe. I think the handle's about 23 inches long, or 27 inches long. And again, it's purpose driven. This thing was specifically manufactured to be used as a fighting axe. It also throws really well. I don't want to lose my place, so I made a list this time. Okay, proper grip with a Viking Age sword. This is one of my sharps. This sword's name is Hammer. And I call it Hammer because it's the heaviest sword that I own. So this is called the Hammer Grip. The Hammer Grip works pretty good with later medieval age swords, but the problem is this large pommel here. If you hold it hammer style and you try to get a full swing out of it, the base of the pommel digs into the heel of your palm, and it keeps you from getting a full swing. If you modify the grip to what's called the handshake grip, now you get full motion. There's no resistance at all. The weight of a Viking sword, there's a lot of argument about how heavy they were. Some of the grave digs, they go from 1 pound and 9 ounces up to 4 pounds, depending on what it is. But for the most part, they needed to be light, they needed to be quick, and they needed to have balance, and they needed to be manufactured in a way where it wasn't going to be a huge chore to wield this thing. You got to remember, sure, these guys had amazing upper body strength, especially the ones that were rowing around. Just imagine sitting on the rower at the gym for 12 hours a day, the massive upper body strength that these guys had. 4 pound sword, You know, I'm not living in the Viking age. I don't row for 12 hours, so I don't have that massive upper body strength that those guys would have had. But I can tell you right now, a 2.5 pound sword or a 2.7 pound sword is going to be a hell of a lot more easy to wield. It's going to be a pleasure to wield, and you're going to be able to be effective for much longer because you're not wielding a cinder block with a handle on it. So that is a double-edged Viking Age sword. This one here, and this one actually became a quick favorite. This is Splitter. This is a single-edge Norwegian-style Viking sword. And the reason that, if you look closely here, you can see this sword only has a single edge. It's not a double-edged sword. And the reason that they made a lot of these is in parts of Norway, they didn't have crucible steel. They didn't have high carbon steel. What they had to work with was low-grade steel or iron in many cases. And by making a sword with a single edge, it enabled them to make a weapon that would be effective, that would stand up in the battlefield with the materials that they had. Literally, this thing is like a big knife. And going back to the attributes of a sword, if you look at a sword being a big knife and not a baseball bat, you don't really have to strike that hard with the sword to do the damage. The weight itself, if you toss that sword forward and either apply pushing or pulling pressure, it's going to cut into your opponent, like so. You see that? I didn't swing it hard. I used the weight of the sword the momentum and the weight of the sword to drive that edge into the target. So again, sword is a big knife. A tribute to our esteemed great teacher, Roland Warzeka. He says all the time, you know, a sword is a big knife. And one of the examples that he gave during one of his presentations was, if you simply took a knife and you were trying to eat a steak and you simply pressed the blade against the meat, you wouldn't be satiated. You wouldn't be able to eat because it wouldn't cut. But you take that same knife and you press it against the meat and you either push forward or pull backwards, you're going to slice all the way into the plate. So remember, sword is a big knife. When you read some of the old treatises, they'll use the word cut quite often. A sword cut. They don't say chop. They don't say a sword chop. They say a sword cut. Now, that being said, if my arm is extended and somebody takes their big knife, their sword, and comes down in a hacking motion, they're going to cut my arm right off. But the idea of a sword is to cut flesh. So by chopping, you're not going to do as much damage as you would do if you had pushing or pulling pressure. Now, this sword is razor sharp. Here's my hand. Don't try this at home. But literally, I can do this all day. And I'll probably have a bruise at the end of the day, but it's not cutting me. Now, if I were to pull my sword back 2 inches quickly or push it forward 2 inches quickly, the blade would cut right to the bone. So that's how these were meant to be used. So, let's go to the spear. The spear was the most common weapon on the battlefield during the Viking Age for a couple of reasons. One, it was easier to make than a sword or an axe. Our infamous Ivar, member of Draugr Vinlands, the example that he gives when he talks to people about blacksmithing and swordsmithing and so forth is he says, you know, any blacksmith that had the skill set that would enable him to make a chisel would have the skill to make a spear. So you've got the spear head, and if you're making a chisel, you've got the chisel head. Chisel head wouldn't have a point on it. It would be sharpened here and you'd be cutting wood with it or shaping wood with it. It would also have this socket here that the handle of the chisel would go into. So literally, by making the same shape and modifying that shape into a spearhead, you've taken your skill as a chisel maker and turned that skill into the ability to make a weapon, a very deadly weapon. So back to the first reason. I don't train with the spear very often. I have a lot of respect for the weapon. We've got some great spearmen in our group.
Sorry.
We've got Avon. He's an amazing spearman. We've got Ivar, who's one of our spear coaches. He is a pain in the ass when he wields a spear, trust me. And we've also got Ulfi, and Ulfi is one of our newest members. He's a pain in the ass, and so is Thor. Again, these are people, for the most part, other than Ivar and Avon, that are new members of the group, and they're very formidable with their spears. So there's a couple of reasons why the spear is so formidable. One is reach. So as long as I stay back here, this guy can't touch me. But if I close the distance, now I'm taking that advantage of reach, and I'm throwing it in the toilet, and I'm giving this swordsman the ability to get inside of my kill zone here, and take me out. So the idea with the spear is you want to stay back. You want to keep prodding and pushing, and if the swordsman charges you, all you have to do is keep stepping back. You keep stepping back and you maintain this distance. And you use that distance to your advantage. Throwing spears, I'm sure they had javelins, and if you read the sagas, they definitely threw spears at each other. Many times it was a last-ditch effort, and if you only had a spear and a small knife and you throw your spear, now you've either killed one of your enemy, or you've given them another weapon, and now you've lost your main weapon, you've lost your ranged weapon, and now you're back to a knife. So throwing your spear is probably a bad idea. Throwing your axe, again, everybody saw the movie 300 when Leonidas threw his spear at the Persian emperor. That was a gamble. That's when you do things like that. When you're in the heat of battle, you do not throw your main weapon at your enemy. He's either going to pick it up and throw it back, which again, we read about that quite a bit in the sagas, or you're going to be left with a knife slipping around in your comrade's guts while you're being killed by the enemy. Okay, so combinations. Combinations are something that we talked about quite heavily when we first started the group. I first started this Viking combat stuff in 2012. I started Draugr Vinlands in 2013, and 2013 is when we really started to look at technique. And I found one of Roland Worthseka's videos online. I really liked his teaching style. I also took a few lessons with Bill Short of Hurstwick. He runs a school in Massachusetts, and he's done quite a bit of combat archaeology. He goes to Iceland. He does a lot of work with Viking Age, Icelandic and Greenland and Vinland Age Viking history. If you don't know Hurstwick, you should definitely look them up. Their website is amazing, and it's loaded with amazing information on the way things actually were. Everybody loves Hollywood, but the truth of it is, if you want to learn about Vikings, do the research. Don't watch television. Don't get your history from a movie. You want to show everybody our whining friend here? Sturl. Excuse me, woman. Hi, this is Sterling, and she's deciding to be a pain in the ass right now because she's not getting attention.
Rocky.
Right, Sterl? Okay, so back to combos. Combinations. We used to do quite a bit of throwing combinations at each other. Sterling, really? So, if you're throwing combinations, you know, we used to have a wooden flat piece of wood shaped like a human being with the strike zones, the number of strike zones actually painted on it. And we did that because when you're teaching new recruits, having that visual aid was amazing, and it sped up the training process. We don't use Woodrolf anymore. If you dig way back into my Instagram account, you'll see the figure standing there, and it was gray and maroon, and it had the numbers written on there. And again, it was a training aid. Now we don't need it. We use the Pel instead. So when you're throwing combinations, this is the most natural for a righty. For a lefty, it would be the opposite side. So everybody expects these hits. And just like when you're boxing, you might throw a couple of different blows to try to create an opening and take advantage of it. And it's the same with this type of combat. You bring up your sword, you do a 1, 2. So bringing it up here for the 1, coming across, now I'm covering my weapon side as I come over to strike the 2. What's really important is returning to guard. If you throw a 1 and you throw a 2 and you do one of these, you're probably going to catch a sword or an axe in the head. So we also found that throwing a combo of 2, not a problem. You can back off. Once you get to 3 or above, there's a good chance that by the time you throw that 3rd blow or you're approaching the 4th blow, you're going to get hit. What Roland Wierzeka talks about quite a bit is tempo. And tempo essentially is in the time that you can do something, your enemy can do something. So if I'm bringing my sword over to throw a 1, my right side is completely open. So if somebody sees that, they block my blow with their shield, they can cut my arm off at the shoulder, no problem, because I'm wide open. But if I throw a 1 and then immediately come across and throw a 2, not only have I avoided having my arm cut off at the shoulder, but I'm also delivering a blow here. And if that person had already come up to throw a 2 at me, they're going to find themselves having my sword cut into their throat. And this is, of course, assuming that the enemy that's throwing a blow at me isn't doing it properly by covering his weapon side while doing it. The other thing is, when you